What'd he get?
Some promises.
Okay. Good for him.
Were you surprised that some of your members went along with some promises, assurances from the speaker?
Nope. I knew all along they would trade the cow for magic beans. And these beans are like the rest. They don't sprout.
I mean, they seem convinced that they'll get $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. You don't buy it?
No. Not happening. We'll see. We'll see how it all works.
I mean, do you worry that your party's not focused on prices enough? I mean, given how big the issue was?
What I'm worried about is that the House is not consummating what President Trump is trying to do. Like the Doge cuts, why aren't we voting on those every week?
Right.
We should be doing rescissions or something. But I suppose we don't want to take recorded votes on things.
Yeah.
I mean, like on the tariffs, we should be voting on that. We're not voting on that.
Trade the cow for the magic beans.
Right.
It's been another week, folks. Another week, and somehow I am still not yet tired of winning. But we'll, I guess, talk about that. So good to see you guys again, though. We got Patty and Amber both on the stream tonight, and we've got. It's been another week, so I don't know where to start. I guess I should start with a couple of things. I always forget something to talk about on the show. And last week I was talking a lot about the Wisconsin race, and one thing I forgot to mention. We're talking about how Brad Schimmel got beat for state Supreme Court. A lot of money was spent on both sides. One of the things I forgot to mention was, they had this issue on the ballot of requiring ID to vote. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you how, by the time the election rolled around, having seen hundreds of ads, I felt like I knew almost nothing about Brad Schimmel. Like, they did nothing to humanize him. They did nothing. I didn't know he was in a band, except for the fact that a voter told me this. I didn't know what his voice sounded like. But one thing that occurred to me, I forgot to mention, they had a winning issue on the ballot, which was requiring ID to vote, and they weren't running any ads that said, "Tell Susan Crawford not to stop opposing requiring ID to vote," which they could have said.
Tie them together, yeah.
They could have just done that. They didn't even do that on the issue that people were voting on. But anyway, how are you guys doing? It's been another week in the life, huh?
Yeah, it's just like a million things happen in 1 week, right? The news, it's like one thing after another. But
yep.
Yeah, it's all right, I guess.
Mark says greetings from Highland Park. Mark's here. Hey, Jason says, I was like Whitmer in school covering my face, hoping the teacher wouldn't call on me. Yeah, Matt Walsh made the comment. It's like how my 2-year-old plays hide and seek. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Baby.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. I felt like it was like a long weekend. I went to the state committee. It was my first state committee meeting ever. I've never been to a state committee meeting in all the times I've been an activist for the MIGOP. Is that weird?
Did you feel like you've been missing out? Because I've never felt that way.
Oh, absolutely not. But it was really cool going as a spectator because I was there for Sonny, who's now the treasurer of the MIGOP, which is just a monumental task that he's taken on. But I was there as his proxy, and I was just having a great old time seeing everybody that I missed. But it's a lot. But I feel hopeful. I left there feeling very hopeful.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah. I like to feel hopeful too. I mean, I do think, and I did say when Jim Runstead was elected chair, I do think people underestimated him, and they think he's gonna be like another Christina Caramo type. And it's like, no, Jim is someone who didn't get to be a state senator by being a dummy. I think he knows what he's doing. So we'll see.
He's making the calls, which was the problem I think with every past chair. Honestly, he's making the calls. And there was we were at Hillsdale, and the Hillsdale president kind of showed up there, and it was just really like he's standing with us, and he gave a great speech, and it's like Jim is making the connections that we have to around the state to really move the needle. And so it was really, I was impressed. I was very impressed. So.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it.
That's good.
So, Mark says he became the first vice chair of the Wayne County Republican Committee last month, which is almost an official county party, but still very good. Cox will be coming to their meeting on April 28th. So there you go.
Awesome. Mark.
Congratulations, Mark. I've just had a week of still just getting stuff done. Actually, I don't want to be a downer on this topic at the top of the show, but I had to put my dog down last week. Unfortunately, he had a brain tumor. He was 13 and a half years old, so a good age for a fairly big dog. I will tell you guys a great story about him. When I was in Washington, D.C., when I worked on the Hill, it was 2013, and they actually allow dogs in the halls of Congress, which if your boss allows it, I suppose, but mine did. And so I had Boston, who was a very young boy at the time. He was only about a year old, and my older boy was like 10 or something. So the old boy I'd bring to the office. The younger one I almost never could because he was too rambunctious. But you can also come in on the weekends. And I was brand new in Congress. I was excited about doing things and being in the arena. So I actually came in once on a Sunday, and there's like nobody in the office. There's no one there on Sunday. So I brought the dog with me, and we're on the same floor of the Cannon building as Nancy Pelosi's office. Now, not her real office. She is one of the Capitol, but but she still has an office on the second floor of this Cannon building. And I'm just in the office, and we're walking through the halls, and Boston, who's still very young at the time, takes a big dump just like right in front of Nancy Pelosi's door. So,
Oh my God.
take a photo of it. I believe I deleted the photo though because I didn't want to get fired over that, and I didn't want to take any chances. But that did happen. But anyway, so it's unfortunate, but that's such is life. They unfortunately outlive our dogs. So anyway, but we do have things to talk about this week. It's been a crazy week. So I guess starting off with the cold open clip. So that was Thomas Massie talking about this budget deal, which there's an article about this I can put up, but basically they just simply there was a bunch of talks about how we're not going to do this, and Johnson actually says that Trump didn't even have to call a single member or wrangle anybody. They just made promises, and that's all it took for them to go for it. And as Massie says, I would not believe it for a second that this is actually going to play out. In fact, there was this big cabinet meeting this week when Elon Musk announces, guess what, guys? Doge is going to save $150 billion this year. And then Pete Hegseth comes out and says, guess what, guys? News, the Department of Defense is going to get another $150 billion this year. It's a record high budget. So I guess that means we have net no cuts in the government based upon that. And especially lousy coming from Pete Hegseth, because he used to take money from this group called the Convention of States, which lobbied for a balanced budget amendment. Now here he is saying, record high budgets, everybody. Isn't this awesome? Isn't this great? So yeah, thanks Pete Hegseth. We really appreciate that. But yeah, we'll see. But I mean, the thing is, guys, like once they're in office, suddenly budget cuts don't sound so good anymore. Because now it's like, what do you mean? We could spend more money on all the stuff we want to do in the military. We could spend more money on all the stuff we want to do at the border. They always have things they want to spend more money on because it's their departments now. So how many cuts do you think they're going to find? No, because Congress just authorized them not to cut anything. Of course, they're not going to cut anything. It's just crazy. Something else Massie caught too, by the way. This is kind of wild. Let me put this back up on the screen here. So this was in their resolution here. And remember we were talking last week about how it was that President Trump got to impose these tariffs without an act of Congress. Well, there is a time limit on those apparently, but Congress just decided to throw this in here. Apparently I can't zoom in on this, but it says, it doesn't help much. Each day during the period from April 9th, 2025 through September 30th shall not constitute a calendar day for the purposes of Section 202 with respect to a joint resolution in the National Emergencies Act. So Congress has assumed the power of God to control time and say that actually all these days that are passing aren't actually days. So that the president has the authority to make this emergency last through September. Unless they want to extend it again if they want to. So here we go. The emergency powers, folks. Isn't that great? We have emergency power to set
Flashbacks.
Yeah. Tariffs, which we'll talk about the tariffs in a minute. But so we have Congress not doing anything to codify the tariffs. Congress not doing anything to make the temporary Doge cuts permanent. They just reauthorize all that spending.
Right.
And here's the biggest one. Congress doing nothing whatsoever about these rogue justices, these rogue these rogue inferior trial court judges that have declared that they have the power to just issue decrees declaring what Trump's doing has to be stopped. There's one thing they did. The House passed a bill to say that these district courts can't put in any further injunctions, but they know it's going to just die in the Senate because they won't reform the filibuster. They won't end the filibuster, even though they all know the moment Democrats take power in the Senate, they're going to end the filibuster anyway. So they're just going to let the Democrats block everything that they do in the Senate for the period that Republicans have control of both chambers. That's all they're doing. So every single week, these judges put out crazier and crazier and crazier decisions yet. And even still, they'll do nothing. In fact, we have a great story about this. This is a great, amazing case of the fake news with this guy, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, where the fake news headline says, the Supreme Court sides with the wrongly deported migrant. Let's see what the New York Times article claims. A trial judge has ordered the Trump administration to take steps to return the migrant, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, from a notorious prison in El Salvador. This is fake news. This is not what the Supreme Court ordered. This is narrative crafting so that they can impeach Trump when the Democrats get back into power again. This is not what the Supreme Court ordered. So let's have a little closer look at this case, shall we? This is the Time magazine story. I guess it's not. Is it really still a magazine? I don't know. What's to know about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man mistakenly deported to prison from El Salvador? Notice they don't mention he is a member of MS-13, which has now been designated a terrorist organization. And here we go. He's been living in this country for 14 years as an illegal immigrant. They somehow forgot to mention that. He's been married. He's raising children. He was accused in 2019 of being an MS-13 gang member. Really? Was there any due process here? Was he perhaps found to, in fact, indeed been a member of MS-13? And it turns out, after lots of all these great things about him, what a nice guy he is. Oh, and look at this. And he went to Home Depot looking for work. He's gotten married. And here's what happens. A criminal informant alleged that he would belong to the MS-13 chapter in New York. And there was a trial. The government presents evidence, including tattoos, the informant's testimony, which was proven and reliable, that he had a gang membership, that he had a rank in the gang. And they issue an order. They actually deny his asylum request. They say he was being deported back to El Salvador for a well-founded fear of being prosecuted by another gang. Well, why would that be? I mean, obviously, his attorney told him the right to say that because that's what their attorneys all do. But why would he be targeted by a gang in El Salvador if not for him being in a rival gang? Anyway, so in 2019, 6 years ago, they determined that he is not eligible for asylum and that he can be deported, and they order him deported. But they only say that he can't be deported back to El Salvador, which is a courtesy that they will give you if you say, as he did, that you're afraid of what's going to happen in your home country. But he continued. He didn't obey the deportation order, obviously. And then President Trump declares that MS-13 is a terrorist organization. So this courtesy you get to not be deported back to your home country, you no longer get once you are a terrorist, which he had an order for that said that he has been adjudicated to be, and he offered nothing in his own defense to say he wasn't a member of MS-13. So he's declared to be a member. He was found to be an illegal immigrant, member of MS-13 in 2019, does not deport, and now has been deported to El Salvador, which they say is because so here's what happens next. There is this Supreme Court decision. So this judge says, this judge, her name is Paula Zenas, comes out and says that he was denied due process and completely lies about everything about this. Everything I just said, she does not acknowledge. She does not. The government argues that yes, this guy was He was found to be a member of MS-13 in 2019. He was not deported, et cetera, et cetera. So this case goes before the U.S. Supreme Court because the judge orders him to be returned to the United States, which is a bit of a problem because he is now in El Salvador. And you see, El Salvador is beyond the reach of a U.S. District Trial Court judge. They can't effectuate foreign policy. They can't order the government to negotiate with a foreign country for the release of a now designated terrorist. So this goes to the Supreme Court. Here's what the U.S. Supreme Court says. On March 15, 2025, the U.S. removed Kilmar from the United States to El Salvador. He's currently defined as a Center for Terrorism Confinement. The U.S. acknowledged that he was subject to a withholding order for his removal to El Salvador and that the removal to El Salvador was therefore illegal. This is a lie. This is the U.S. Supreme Court putting in a falsehood because the U.S. Attorneys never said that they committed a crime or an illegality. They said there was an administrative error that they just had to go back and say and file a piece of paper saying, yeah, because you're now a terrorist, you're now no longer this removal document saying you can't go back to El Salvador no longer applies. That's all they ever conceded. They never actually said it was illegal for him to be sent to El Salvador because he's now been designated a member of a terrorist organization. So they go on to say the removal to El Salvador was the result of an administrative error. The U.S. alleges that he was found to be a member of the gang MS-13, the designated foreign terrorist organization, that his return to the United States would pose a threat to the public. Garcia responds that he's not a member of MS-13. He's lived safely in the United States with his family for a decade, never been charged with a crime, all except for the crime of being here illegally, and then 2019 being designated a member of the gang and being deported, and therefore also violating a deportation order. So on Friday, this past week before last, the district court entered an order directing the government to facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia to the United States. The issue here is these two words, facilitate and effectuate. These are terms of art. Facilitate in legalese means do not obstruct. Effectuate means make it happen, which they can't do. And here's why we're at the Supreme Court, because the U.S. Attorney says, Your Honor, we can maybe not oppose bringing him back as part of some ongoing legal issues that are going on here. We can't be forced to bring him back because he's in El Salvador. And this judge has just ordered this. So they're asking the Supreme Court, can you please clarify that we can't effectuate his return? We can only facilitate it by not obstructing. That's what this entire decision is about. And so this is the Supreme Court now saying, despite the falsehood they say, claiming that incorrectly that they conceded the removal was illegal, that they can only not obstruct his release from the prison. So that's what this is all about. So now they say the application was denied in part, granted in part. The administrative stay is a deadline's already gone by, so that just doesn't appear anymore. So now they say the rest of the courts remain in effect, but requires clarification. And the clarification is about this term, facilitate. Because again, this is the question. Can a district court trial judge say that we are ordering you to bring him back from El Salvador? And the answer is no. You can only, so the court is very clear. The intended scope of the term effectuate is unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. The district court should clarify its directive with due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. For its part, the government should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. And otherwise, the order heretofore by the Chief Justice, which has been expired, is vacated. So that's what they're saying. You need to clarify, district judge. They're being very, 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 very polite here. You need to clarify what you mean by facilitate, because you can't mean effectuate. So guess what the district judge has done? She just says, the Supreme Court agrees with me, and you must bring him back right now, which is what she's now ordered. This has been going on. Now the judge now claims that the Department of Justice attorney is in contempt of court for saying, Your Honor, we can't bring him back. And also because you gave us this order at 6 p.m. on Thursday night to demand of us by 9 o'clock on Friday morning. What we've done, we haven't done anything yet. And then we need days to digest this Supreme Court decision. So now she's held them in contempt and ordered every day, you tell me what you've done to bring this guy back. And again, this is an absolutely, completely outrageous overstay of authority. This is a district court trial judge ordering the Trump administration on foreign policy, which is expressly reserved for Article 2 for the president. And what's Congress doing on this? Nothing. They are allowing the liberal media to spread the false claim that the Supreme Court has ruled against Trump when they've done the exact opposite and spin this narrative. Congress is not doing anything in their power to call any attention to this case. They're not hauling this judge in for expulsion hearings. In fact, they haven't hauled any judges in for any expulsion hearings, which, newsflash, you don't need to impeach them even. This is the Constitution of the United States. Article 3, the judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time ordain established, meaning they're creations of Congress. And the judges shall hold their offices during good behavior. Well, does defying a U.S. Supreme Court order not constitute no longer being good behavior? And yet, 200 plus Republican members of Congress, plus another 53 in the U.S. Senate, aren't saying anything about this, aren't doing anything about this whatsoever to defend Trump from lawless federal judges. And they're doing nothing. It's amazing. It just boggles my mind. Oh, also, by the way, this also happened recently. Apparently, Chief Justice John Roberts has been hanging out with Norm Eisen, a radical left-wing lunatic legal activist. And they got together in a foreign country to talk about working on American and European rule of law issues together. Oh, goody. Oh, goody. But I mean, at least we still have a 5-4 majority on the court. You know. There's also, by the way, this obnoxious, disgusting, disgraceful statements thrown in there from Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. What is a woman? I don't know. I'm not a biologist. Ketanji Brown Jackson, claiming falsely that the government has cited no basis in law for Albrego Garcia's warrantless arrest, his removal to El Salvador, or his confinement in Salvadoran prison, nor could it. It is completely false, just completely falsifying the record. John C. King says, Pauly Innocent common vernacular is what would be known as an Obama judge. Yeah. But what's happening here, what the Democrats are doing, is what's called narrative crafting. And Republicans just letting them do it with nothing. And I kind of want to know.
I mean,
why,
are you really surprised?
No, well, you would think like when a member of the Michigan Republican delegation in Congress wants to run for higher office and has absolutely nothing to show for his record whatsoever, like John James, he might actually do something, say something, like give MAGA one reason to support him.
He didn't even go himself to the state committee meeting yesterday. He sent a representative.
John James.
Yeah. So he's really not trying to impress anyone.
It's amazing. Well, anyway.
I wonder if we're going to get yelled at for criticizing John James as much as we've been getting yelled at for criticizing Mike Rogers. Because God forbid we have primaries to weed out the worst candidates instead of everybody just kind of aligning behind them. Just saying, we're going to have 5 people running for governor and everybody's in chats complaining about us complaining about Rogers. And when I say us, I mean like the collective of rescue, actually.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that because a prominent conservative commentator actually did throw that gauntlet down on X, which I was going to talk about later in the show. We can jump to that. I'm fine with jumping to that, as a matter of fact. Let me pull up real quick this statement or this comment. Mark, we will be talking about John James right now. We're coming to it, man. Hold it tight. But anyway, let me first go though to the comment I'm talking about. This was from James Dixon, who I don't know if he is still with the Mackinac Center, but he's definitely he's definitely with the Michigan Enjoyer, which I believe is Charlie LaDuff's media outfit. And
Charlie didn't. I think James. Well, I don't want to misspeak, but I think Charlie joined Enjoyer. I don't think he started it.
Okay.
Right.
Either way.
Part of it, yeah.
Doesn't really matter. But the point being, James Dixon made a comment and he asked about the people that are very, very hostile to. Well, here's what he wrote. Here, let me pull it up here. This is what he wrote. And I responded. You'll see. if you're a Republican in Michigan who doesn't like any of the candidates for anything, what's your plan? I'm all ears. I'm not doing it. You're not doing it. Nothing but venom for the people who do raise their hand. I'll ask again, what's your plan? And this is one comment among several that are kind of making the same comment. And basically, and I say right here, I'll be happy to make this the main topic on my next show. And here we are. So let me first start with this point, because he does say this. If you're a Republican in Michigan who doesn't like any of the candidates for anything, well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. You know, I might not like some candidates for some things. I don't like John James. We'll talk about that in a second. I don't like Mike Rogers at all. We've talked about that. Might talk about it again tonight. But that doesn't mean I don't like any of the candidates for anything. I like a lot of good candidates. I like Jim Runstead. I like Senator Jonathan Lindsay. I like Representative Jim DeSanta. I like Representative Jamie Thompson. I like lots of candidates. But you know what he's getting at here. You're just a Debbie Downer. Your standards are so high that nobody can possibly live up to them. You know.
I mean, I actually had this conversation with James today.
Okay.
I said I don't like the scales being tipped. It's not we're being Debbie Downers or whatever. I don't like the scales being tipped when SRCC comes in, and I have this because I worked for the Penciler campaign, SRCC, and all the donor money dries up because you automatically are lining up behind a candidate.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and I will say we all have our limits, and some people will be very strict about what they will tolerate in a politician, and some people are very, let's say, relaxed about that. And by the way, I'm not trying to throw shade at Jim Dixon for asking this question. What he's saying here is what really a lot of people say, that, you know, we have to win. And if you're not helping us win, then you need to do something to help us win. So I guess we'll start with that, because I do want to, like, okay, because he's asking, what's your plan? And I do want to get to that point. But let me first make this point. Why is it my obligation to have a plan? Like, there are people who are paid to have the plan. Like, number one is this outfit called the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the NRSC. Right. Their job is to win the U.S. Senate race in Michigan.
Not to stack their candidate.
And they take millions and millions and millions of dollars to do that purpose. And when you have a candidate, like let's say Mike Rogers, who goes around and intentionally insults and spits upon Republican voters in Michigan by saying things such as those January 6th protesters all belong behind bars. They're kind of sending you a message, which is that they don't need your support, because if they did, they wouldn't be saying stuff like that. Like
no. What he said too was we need to stop talking about the January 6th Sixers. They belong behind bars, and that's not how we win elections. He just wants to sweep everything under the rug. He said that in an event I threw for OCRP. Wanted to sweep everything under the rug and have his narrative, his big war, global scaled narrative that he's now scaled back because that wasn't popular.
Yeah. If you're the NRSC and you're picking and choosing candidates and you're like, okay, we don't like this guy. I was going to say Eric Nesbitt, he's not running for senator, he's running for governor. But let's say, for example, Sandy Penciler, for example. Okay, this guy is a Trumpster. He is a limited government guy. He is a self-funder because he's a multimillionaire. Mm-hmm. But we're going to put our money into Mike Rogers and deploy all the resources of the Republican Party establishment to support Mike Rogers because we don't like Sandy Penciler. We do like Mike Rogers.
We just no, not even like. We can control him. Let's see. Let's tell you what it really is. We like you because we can control you. Yeah,
and because because frankly, on the issues, you're with us. You're a neocon, as are we. Like, there's a reason why, and we'll get to this in a minute, Trump's administration, why the neocons are constantly sabotaging Trump's agenda and ruining his presidency is because they have clout in Washington. And we'll get to that, but here's the point. The candidates are making a choice. So if they are the ones that are going to be saying, okay, well, I care more about pleasing my neocon masters in Washington than the grassroots in Michigan who don't like these policies, then maybe the neocons in Washington should be the ones to elect them. Maybe it's not my job to get a Republican elected to the U.S. Senate because, But there's this idea that we have this moral obligation to support whoever the nominee ultimately is. And it's like, no.
And
so
it's a year and a half out. So now he's being shoved down our throats a year and a half out already. They're saying no primary, don't put anybody up because he's already being shoved down our throats. And that's not okay. That makes me even more angry about Rogers than I was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like I'm being forced again. I'm being forced to accept your choice for a senator that lost in the biggest GOP year we've had in Michigan. So,
yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, if Mike Rogers...
That kind of behavior backfires, right? Just with the Trump endorsements. How many times in Michigan it doesn't work, right? I mean...
Well, the other thing is, if you've lost the race in a year when Trump was on the ballot, what makes you think you're going to win in a year when Trump's not on the ballot? So why do we have people that have lost, and then we have John James, who lost when he ran for U.S. Senate twice, running for governor? He's already proven he does not do well in statewide races. Another thing too, and I want to make one more comment about this premise here before going on to the answer of what my plan is. Nothing but venom for the people who do raise their hand. That and again, I know he's not talking about me personally, but I understand what the idea is here, and the people he's talking about. I don't have nothing but venom for every candidate that's running. I mean, frankly, I've got a lot of issues with Eric Nesbitt, but I'm not bad-mouthing him every single day. Like he was a totally in hoc for the utility monopolies when he was the chair of the Energy Committee. But that was a long time ago. Considering the totality of his record, there's a lot I could complain about with Nesbitt too. And I'm not, and but it's not an endorsement or anything. But there's people I won't. There's people who are like, that's not a huge deal. But what about when, for example, John James was a decisive, deciding vote against Jim Jordan for House Speaker and gave us Mike Johnson, who has betrayed us on all of our core issues, at least all of my core issues, like civil liberties, reining in the budget, the warrantless mass surveillance. Mike Johnson has been awful, and Jim Jordan got all but 8 votes to become the House Speaker. Eight Republicans vetoed it. The only one in Michigan being John James. After which he gave a completely illogical, rambling, nonsensical excuse that contradicted everything he said when he was speaking in support of Kevin McCarthy just a year and a half earlier. So when a politician goes against you on your core issue, and that is what I would consider a core issue. That's like if pro-life is your number one issue, and you're like, well, suck it up and vote for the pro-abort guy. No, that is something you just can't do. Because if you do this, then guess what, guys? The politicians are never going to care about your issues because in their view, and I guarantee you this is John James's view, you're their property. Your vote is their property. Because there's nothing, and this is what they view about 80% of Republican voters, folks, is they'll vote for me no matter what I say or what I do. So all I want, Ron says he's courting donors. Exactly. He's courting donors. John King says he was talking about Mike Rogers talking about the very violent January 6th protesters. I don't believe that.
Well, when he was talking about all of them, and Trump said the same thing. He literally pardoned all of them. Yeah.
If you think Mike Rogers, I could go back and play the clip again because we have on this show previously. We all have our limits, folks. We all have our limits of what we'll put up with, and I will not put up with people who cast deciding votes in ruining the one opportunity we ever had to have a great House Speaker. Like the one job he had in the House was not to fuck up that vote, and he fucked up that vote. So why we reward him with higher office, I will not be a part of that. And if you want to say, well, you got to, no, my plan, going back to that question.
Well, you don't have to. Yeah, that's why we have a primary. And this is why like Amber said, a year and a half away where people are kind of like expecting everyone to like fall in line. I don't know. It's just weird. That's the point of a primary.
I have behind the scenes encouraged certain people that I really do feel strongly about and would support to run. If I can recruit somebody, I'll be happy to. You can't beat something with nothing. But if all the candidates in any given race are lousy, I'll find a different race to work on. You know what, guys? We have a state house to save. We have a state senate to save. We have judicial races. We have issues. You don't have an obligation to get involved in every race under the sun, and certainly not for candidates that you personally find odious.
Right.
So, I mean, that is the core of this. And Republicans have to understand, especially the activist types. You have to understand, you're like the 1% of the party that cares enough to go out and do things, beyond just voting. That you're giving your time, your talent, your treasure. Do it for people that legitimately share your values and you believe in. And if you want to vote for the lesser of two evils in the elections, fine. I've had the discussion a million times in this show about the lesser of two evils. You want to vote for the lesser of two evils in election day, fine. But don't be the fool that's going out and telling everybody to support them. That's not your job. Like, I saw this one comment. I don't want to scroll through my Twitter feed about this, but one person who was saying something very similar to what James was saying was a person whose name is Anna Hoffman, saying, I'm going to record the names of people that are going up against the Republican nominees. And here's the thing. Anna was a never Trumper. So, like, what? So where's the consistency there? I mean, and by the way, Anna Hoffman was viciously attacked by the pro-Trump mob on Twitter. It was wrong for her to be the victim of that kind of stuff. Then we're all entitled to our opinions, and nobody deserves to be called out or shamed for saying I'm not going to go along with the things that you want me to. John King says Mike Johnson is doing fine, all things considered. That's John. If that's your opinion, that's fine. I don't think so. Mike Johnson betrayed us on warrantless mass surveillance. Mike Johnson betrayed us on all the budgetary issues. He betrayed us on the procedural issues. So no, I'm not happy with Mike Johnson. If you are, that's fine. That's your decision. But I'm just saying. And if you think John James is okay and good enough, then you're welcome to support him. But don't be mad at me if I'm not going to, because I've seen his record. He voted wrong on everything that I care about, every foreign policy issue, every budgetary issue, and of course the speaker race.
Oh, I love Shane Hernandez.
Yeah, Shane Hernandez is awesome. Absolutely. He'd be a great candidate. I wish he were going to forgo in 2026. I hadn't even thought of him, but yes, he would have been. He's brilliant. And the outsider is often a really smart play. And that's with a record of baggage like Mike Rogers and John James have. And even Nesbitt too, for that matter. But yeah, so to the extent that I have an obligation to have a plan, which is I don't, my plan is to do what I think is productive and will improve our political advantage in the long run for our issues. Because, like, guys, I don't care about the party. I don't care about the people. I care about the issues. I care about public policy. I care about stop spending our money, stop getting into stupid overseas wars, stop spying on us. The things that Trump ran on, like the outcomes, the results. That's what matters. That's what we're all here for. When you start getting to Team R and Team D and support so-and-so, you're missing the forest for the trees. Like, we're in this because we care about public policy and the future of our country, not for these individual personalities and the parties that might be their vehicles. So if what you're doing is losing the issues for the cause, then you're not helping anyone.
Okay, Adam, you're libertarian showing.
Well, yeah, I believe in freedom. That is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe in the Libertarian Party, but I do believe that having a constituency that you need to win is important. I feel kind of embarrassed for the Libertarian Party that the only thing they asked of Trump was to pardon Ross Ulbricht. I mean, that's nice. One guy is free, but that's what the price of your vote was. One guy. But whatever. Anyway.
Oh yeah, no, we won't get into that.
So. All right, where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about the week in Washington, which was not a great thing in Congress, but I have to also say, not a great look for the president. Well, there was one great thing. We got to talk about this first.
Come on, don't forget that.
Heck no.
She looks like she's in a timeout.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, she's so embarrassed to be there. Well, then why was she there? There was this. There was.
It's like she's rethinking all of her life choices in that one moment.
There's this. Oh my God, as Matt Walsh said, this is how my 2-year-old plays hide and seek. It's so pathetic. I don't know. You can't really tell it's her though, guys. It might be somebody else. No,
I thought it was a doctored photo, but it's real.
This is actually real.
It's a real thing. I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, this is so pathetic. This has to be like if Whitmer runs for anything else in the future for the rest of her life, and she probably won't. She's got no shot for president. What else would she run for? She'll want to be some kind of appointee or something like Granholm was. But if ever she is in any kind of running for office mode again, like this is the photo that needs to be used from now on.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, like she was sneezing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, what was the context? Yeah, or was she playing around? Like, oh, I don't know, but
I doubt
I'm
that. So
surprised she hasn't said anything, honestly.
Well, here's from the New York Times. Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan stood glumly in the Oval Office, hoping no one would take her picture. She had not expected to be there, standing in front of the cameras as President Trump signed executive orders. This is the New York Times saying, punishing those who opposed him speaking the truth about 2020. They didn't say it that way. Then Mr. Trump's aide surprised her by ushering her into the Oval Office, not for her scheduled one-on-one meeting with the president, but for a politically loaded appearance before the press corps. She found herself an unwilling participant in his unending reality show with photos of her rocketing around group chats of Democrat strategists who wondered what on earth she was doing. Well played, I guess. Although Trump did praise Gretchen Whitmer for the visit, which is never a good thing. And Whitmer, for her part, says, yeah, those Trump tariffs are they're really great. They're really great.
She put a press release out saying, I don't align. Just because I was there doesn't mean I support anything that was done or said. Okay.
Yeah, she instantly walked it back.
Yeah.
By the way, Mark and Barry. So Barry said Kevin Rinke's credibility in business and a strong ground game. Mark Price says, you think he'll run for governor? He almost won the primary last time. Yeah, he might. He might. So yeah, there you go. Jay asks, is there a video of this? I don't understand the context led to her covering her face like that. The context, I'm sure, was someone pointing a camera at her. The context was, but no, I don't think there's video. I think they're taking photos.
Trump said something else though, and I'm drawing a blank. Something about he was like going on and on about Matt Hall, and then he's like, "Oh well, Gretchen's here. Well, we all know her," or something like that. I don't remember the quote exactly, but it was really dismissive. But that's not the quote. That's
Well, anyway, so the big story this week, though, in the White House, of course, were the tariffs, which we talked about last week. They have since been walked back very, very rapidly. Apparently, Trump has walked back everything except for the 10% baseline, which he's still applying to the whole world.
Against China.
China. China. So
China walked back the phones and electronics.
So China. So the first thing was China imposed reciprocal tariffs. There's a funny word, reciprocal, to which the Trump administration responded with a 400% tariff, which China then also reciprocated, followed by them walking back with an exemption on chips and technology and things like that, because otherwise we will no longer have iPhones.
Did you see the meme of the Xi Jinping reading Art of the Deal?
I did not. I did see the memes of the Americans making cell phones in sweatshops, though, which people in the American media were calling a cell phone from China. But it's like, well, that cell phone put the image all over the place on the internet, so I guess it worked.
Right.
But I had
a sweatshop in his. I don't know if you remember that stuff, but
so. I don't know. We talked about this last week. If you guys have any thoughts you want to share about how these tariffs are going, but this is a 3D chess move is the new spin. And actually what Trump was really doing is just testing everyone's loyalty. And we're going to only make a stick with China. The other ones, we're going to get a 90-day pause to let them negotiate a better deal with these, to let these people kiss his ass, as he said in the NRCC dinner. Yeah. I mean, that was just so bad. I mean, did you not know that was being televised?
Oh my God.
He says all these world leaders are just kissing my ass. Oh, please, sir. Please, can we make a deal, sir? And it's like, Alexander on the Duran had a great point about this. All the world leaders were so happy when Trump got elected because they all hated Biden's freaking guts. And they all remembered Trump from the first 4 years. They kind of liked him. And they know the Biden administration was complete trash. Biden personally was, decrepit and surly and nasty, and they all hated him. And they're also happy that Trump was back in office, and because he gets along with people. Trump's very in person. I think Bill Maher just talked about this on his.
Yeah, he did too. Like, who's the guy?
When Trump's in person with people, he gets along great with everybody because he's extremely courteous and thoughtful and listens and all that stuff. And they've all met him before. A lot of them have, so they kind of like the guy. And now he comes out and slaps them all around in front of national television. puts tariffs on the whole world, and it's like you've just blown so much goodwill with the whole world. And I get the whole bringing jobs back and all that kind of stuff, but the world's going to look at that, and constantly the messaging is the whole world is ripping us off. I don't think the whole world sees it that way. I don't think Africa sees it that way. I don't think Vietnam sees that they're ripping off the United States. And again, there's all these put downs. There's all this. What's going to happen? Barry, I have read The Art of the Deal, and I do get that. But here's the thing: international diplomacy and business deals are not the same kind of thing. Like, there is a whole long-term relationship that does matter a lot in international diplomacy, which is not the same as the cutthroat world of business. All these other countries are going to go and they're going to think, gee, well, let's see. The United States is threatening us. They are tariffing us and saying if we don't negotiate better deals, we're going to have more tariffs. And maybe we should not rely on the United States so much. Like, that's what a lot of them are going to be saying. So we'll see. I mean, again, we'll see this plays out. I hope it works.
It's like there's no thought put into it. I mean, we're going to slap all these tariffs on cars. Do you know how long it takes to build an assembly plant?
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to take to bring manufacturing home? Like decades?
3 years, 2 to 3 years at least.
I actually don't think it's that bad.
No?
I think we'll be okay. I really do. I think that we have enough infrastructure in America still that needs to be tapped into, that still exists, that will be just fine. We just have a lot of lazy people, and the economic development people in each state doesn't do what they need to do to get it done. That's what I feel.
I'm watching my entire house, which was surrounded by farms, is now surrounded by the construction of solar panels. There's these gigantic solar farms going up all over my house. I'm thinking, how are we compete? We're compete with cheap Russian gas, building solar farms as we rip out all of our nuclear plants and build this stuff. Like, how is this all going to work?
We have enough infrastructure though in place in this country. We just have to go and use it. And there's a lot of lazy people that don't want to do their effing job.
We have empty assembly plants laying around.
We do.
Where?
I'm sure I could Google it right now. I could chat GPT that shit.
Okay.
But they all. I mean,
they need to be updated. But
more than that, I mean, buildings really fall apart over time when they're once they're neglected. Like, I mean, I remember I used to have a friend that lived in Detroit, and I went to his house, and like all of the alleyways had turned into fields. Like, they completely rewilded it. So
just because that's Michigan doesn't mean that's America.
Well, but my point being, if an assembly plant's empty for 5+ years, you can't just like turn it back on again. You have to rebuild the whole thing from the bottom up. It's probably completely rotted out.
I don't know. I think that we're just being doom and gloom, and there's plenty of places that can be.
Well, I hope you're right, but the thing is, the business world does not like radical sudden changes. They like stability and gradualism, and that's not what just happened here. Anyway,
that's not life. I mean, if people need to do it, they'll do it. I mean, that's what happened in my life. You do what you have to do.
I hope so. Dan says Belvedere will take 2 years to refit.
Yep.
Jay, I want to go back to his comment. He says, I approve of tariffs only in the condition they're repealing the federal income tax. We should have both an income tax and high tariffs. Yeah, as a revenue source, if it's a substitute for something else, that's fine. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is we're cutting no spending. We're raising the spending, I think, is what's going to end up being what's going on. And we just have tariffs and taxes. So
I think there's a goal, though, to get rid of the income tax.
We'll see. Well, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. So there was all that. Yeah, I think the Trump, the rollback was because of the bond market spazzing out, not because he was just testing everybody to see what their reactions were going to be and who was going to be loyal to him. But so there was that news, and then there was the other thing was there's been more talk on Russia and Iran, more international diplomacy, although overall it's kind of moving at a glacial pace. But at least they say the meeting with Iran yesterday went well, whatever that means. They're not really being clear about that, but both the U.S. and the Iranians are saying it went well. So I guess that's a good thing, because earlier this week, Netanyahu came to the United States where he's demanding war, demanding the Libyan model, which I assume means, bombing the shit out of Iran and then murdering its leader, which is what happened in Libya, then the whole Hillary Clinton, we came, we saw, he died thing. Like, we tried to claim it was the Arab Spring uprising, and that's what got Gaddafi to power. No, it was Hillary Clinton. We came, we saw, he died. And there's actually, I've got a video, but have you guys seen Trump pushing in Netanyahu's chair like he's his waiter? It was so bad. But hey, hopefully we'll see what happens. Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk both like sent out a 5-alarm siren saying, "Please do not bomb Iran, Mr. President," which suggests that it was like really that close, and maybe it still is.
Oh my God.
We don't know. You never know. You never know with Trump. There was some more Russia talks. So here's the big story. Let me put this up on the screen here. This just came out a couple of days ago. So Steve Witkoff goes to meet with Putin. Witkoff's the smart one in the administration, not the three morons, Waltz and Rubio and Mike Waltz. He's in the smart side with JD Vance. So they meet with Putin, and again, for like the 100,000th time, Putin's like, we are not going to bend on the 4 territories. We are not giving them back to Ukraine. We need a solution that will address the root cause. We are not going to have a ceasefire. So Witkoff comes back. And he just flat out says, again, this is the Reuters, it's the fake news. So they say the fastest way to broker a ceasefire, said Witkoff, was to support a strategy that would give Russia ownership of the 4 eastern Ukrainian regions. It attempted to annex illegally in 2022, they say, which is weird because A, they have been annexed for the most part, and B, they had a vote and they voted to join Russia, so it's actually not illegal. It's the Kosovo precedent that we argued for and we set, but whatever. And of course, you have the usual people freaking out. So here we have Keith Kellogg saying that that's outrageous. We can't do this. Kellogg, I don't think I have it pulled up, but he came with this crazy ass map that I'm sure it shows. The way it looks like is it's got partials of the 4 territories given back to Russia, and then the rest of Ukraine kind of split in half, where there's American and I'm sorry, not American, British and French troops occupying like the other parts of Ukraine along Kherson and Zaporozhye. And when the Russians saw this, they were like fuming, just seeing like a bull seeing red, to have seen that. But and also, how dare Witkoff invite the Russian envoy to his house? There's complaints about that. So again, glacially slow pace here, where the day just gets closer and closer when Russia is going to launch its. I mean, they already have started to ramp it up. Russia doesn't do anything suddenly. Like, this kind of gradually go harder and harder and harder. And whenever we have, like historically, whenever you have a war of attrition, like it collapses suddenly. Like when the losing side collapses, it's just boom. And when the money dries up, what's Trump going to do? What's he going to do when there's no more aid coming in, when there's no more weapons, when Ukraine is out of options and Russia is marching forward? And his only option is to get out now, to shut it down now. And he's got these people, Witkoff, I'm sure Rubio too, and I'm certainly Mike Waltz, saying, no, you can't do this. You're letting the Russians manipulate you. And all these people in Washington who all have the worst intentions for Trump, who want him to get sucked into Ukraine, and he's letting himself be sucked in by these little demons on his shoulder. And another week has gone by, and you see it all the time. Witkoff smart, Vance smart, Rubio, Waltz, and Kellogg, General Fruit Loops, just getting him caught into this, and they're just digging his grave. There was also a new story. The Ukrainians have a new spin that it's actually China fighting for China's now fighting for Russia. They now say there's a whole North Korea's fighting for Russia scandal. Well, now the new appeal to Trump is it's actually the Chinese. The Chinese are fighting for the Russians. You got to stop the Chinese because they're all part of it's all part of the axis of evil. China and Russia and Iran. And we'll see. But Trump made a remarkable decision this week, just a day or two ago. He put out a statement. He extended the sanctions on Russia, which Russia said they don't really care about because they've been avoiding them anyway. But in the statement, and here comes Marco Rubio. Here comes Marco Rubio supporting the sanctions. They have a statement extending the sanctions on Russia for another year. And guess what they say? Among the harmful activities ascribed to Russia and renewing in the renewal document saying why going to extend the sanctions on Russia are, quote, efforts to undermine the conduct of free and fair democratic elections and democratic institutions in the United States and its allies and partners. So the Trump White House is now signing off on Russiagate. Oh, and the conspiracy theory that Russia meddled in the Romanian elections. that whole scandal too. Because once again, we're helping out our European pals who are turning against democracy, turning against free speech, jailing Christians, overturning elections. It's all the Ruskies. That's the European narrative. So now the Trump administration, via Marco Rubio, saying, yeah, Russiagate was real, and the Russians are meddling in our elections. And they also claim that Russian attempts to, quote, undermine security in countries and regions important to the United States' national security, and to violate well-established principles of international law, including respect for the territorial integrity of states. We're talking about Ukraine. We must support Ukraine. We must stand with Ukraine. And now, again, Trump, he is not making up his mind on this, and he's just sinking into the marsh, folks. Yeah, here's the other article about Kellogg. This is this map that Kellogg drew. This is Kellogg's map, how his plan for Ukraine would go. So we'll just take some land back from the Russians and permanently place European Western troops in Odessa and Zaporozhye and Kherson, right on the Russians' doorstep. We'll put the French and German troops. Actually, not French and British troops, which is just as bad. But yeah, that's Kellogg's plan. Jay says there's only a 1.5 year window of time to get Trump's entire agenda done. Anything it'll take longer than that will not prevent Republicans losing in the midterms. You might not even be that much time. But yeah. So there's all those things. And I got one more thing for you guys. I don't know if you saw this. Kristi Noem, the great murderer of puppies, has put out a new hold on, where am I here? A new photo, a new video. Here it is. This is Kristi Noem. I'll make this full screen. You can watch this video.
We appreciate them. Here we are with Marco and Brian today. They're letting me roll with them. We're going to go out and pick up somebody who I think is got charges of human trafficking. We earlier had an op that swept up somebody who was wanted for murder. So appreciate the good work that they do every day, and we appreciate them working to make America safe. Well,
I guess the good news is that while Kristi Noem is out in the field doing photo ops, she's not in her office, where she also just today put out a statement bragging about the imposition of real ID on Americans. If you do not have your paperwork, you will not be able to fly in an airplane in the United States starting in May. So next month, guys, if your ID is not real ID compliant, your national ID card is not real ID compliant, you won't be able to fly in the United States or enter a federal courthouse, by the way. So at least while Noem is out in the field pointing guns at her colleagues, she's not actually in the field doing that. A lot of people talked about this very bad handling of a firearm there, pointing it right at her colleague's head there. Although, to be fair, the way she's wearing that vest might be even worse. It looks like her left arm is not in the sleeve. It looks like it's like underneath the side of the vest there. If you look at this, like there's the vest all the way here, and her hand is like down here, like it's poking out from underneath. So I don't know. I don't know. But it's funny. We did this. Remember that tier list we made, like in the beginning of the year or the end of last year, and like everything is shaping up perfectly. Like Kristi Noem, Mike Waltz, Keith Kellogg, Marco Rubio, just presidency sabotaging failures. And then you've got the good guys. You've got Bobby Kennedy, and you've got JD Vance. We didn't have Witkoff on the list. He was kind of a pleasant surprise, but he's been a fast learner, I would say. But yeah, things have kind of really gone along with that with that line there. Although I don't know. You guys saw what Tulsi did? She has put out a statement here that she made a whole video statement that we have evidence of electronic voting systems being vulnerable to hackers. And yeah, I was kind of hoping she'd be more looking into the lies that are leading to war as like the big director of national intelligence thing, but whatever. Oh, where did we go? Here we are. Anyway, so who knows? Maybe she will be doing things that we just don't see, talking to Trump about some of this stuff. Allegan News, I like John James. Allegan News, you missed we talked about John James already. You missed to go back and watch the earlier part of the show. Yeah, so that was the week that perished, folks. Wish I had better news for you. But in the meantime, hey, I got a question for you guys. I've always had the attitude that we really should be writing our lawmakers, but do you think we should be doing campaigns to contact the White House? Like, because someone's got to say something about this stuff. I mean, I feel like they all just go to gatekeepers and nothing's going to ever penetrate at all. But, I wonder if it's worth even trying. What do you guys think?
Wouldn't it be a gatekeeper at the White House too? I guess.
Well, exactly. There would be. That's what I'm saying is the concern is that, you send letters to the White House and no one reads them. But, I mean, in my experience, they do read them. They do at least count them. Like there are, people whose job is to count how many complaints we get on one topic or another. And you would think that like slowly gets passed up the chain of command, maybe, but maybe it doesn't. It's hard to say.
I don't know.
I don't know what the procedures are in the White House. I mean, in Congress, if the members want to get reelected, they do care. So I don't know, but I feel like there's things that need to be said to the White House about things. Oh, speaking of the White House, though, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Another leftover thing from last week's show. Talking about that Signal Gate thing we talked about last week. I forgot to mention this. The news reported that J.D. Vance and Susie Wiles both recommended firing Mike Waltz over that. So.
Oh, really?
So, again, Vance smart. Vance doing the right thing. Susie Wiles apparently doing the right thing, too, saying that this is a problem. We should fire this guy. But Trump not taking that good advice. So there was that. Did you notice also how Congress, when they hauled in Tulsi Gabbard for that hearing, but not Mike Waltz? Because there again, Congress doesn't want smart people in Trump's administration. They want to put the pressure on Tulsi, not on Mike Waltz.
Maybe he'll fire him after things cool down so it doesn't look like he did it because they told him to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows?
I hope so. Anyway, what else is going on? Got some state stuff to talk about, I suppose. There's a couple of Michigan State Supreme Court decisions, including one ending life sentences for murderers, on the grounds that at age 19 and 20, their brains are not fully developed, which I think their brains are not fully developed. This is pretty embarrassing.
Well, did you see, unrelated but kind of similar, Harvard is going to add like a remedial math class or something? Like people have just gotten dumber. Like you used to graduate like at 13 from like school and and people were intelligent. You used to go to Cass Tech and graduate and you were basically an engineer. You could go right into automotive from Cass Tech. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah. It goes into just one more thing of why we got to care about the judiciary and be talking to people about these freaking insane left-wing liberal judges that are completely lawless, completely demented, and totally 100% pro-criminal. Always, without exception. Every last one of them. Jay asked what I think about Stephen Miller. He's great on immigration, lousy on foreign policy, and probably good on some other things too. But he's neocon in his foreign policy ideas. Like I'm all for America first, but not with the attitude that every other country in the world should be disrespected, which I think is where a lot of them come from. John C. King, do we know there was not yet another plant in the NSA? I heard Trump just fired an NSA director for being a liberal Biden plant or something like that. I forgot to mention that last week too. That one bit of good news was when Laura Loomer showed up at the White House and gets Trump to fire a bunch of people. That was cool.
That's funny.
I wish she shows up there more often. And there was some other. Oh, who else? Another glimmer of good news. He fired the ambassador to Ukraine, who was a hardcore Victoria Nuland protege, totally pro-Ukraine, totally Banderite, totally neocon. Only 90 days in, finally fires the Biden-era ambassador to Ukraine. But that did finally happen, so that's nice. That's something. Patty, was there some other Supreme Court decision you mentioned that they just did?
The
the pot.
smelling marijuana is not reason enough to pull somebody over
Yeah, was
while
that
they're driving.
5-2 also? Probably.
I don't know. Why was that last one 5-2?
I'm asking you. I don't know. It probably.
I mean, the court's 6-1 now, right? But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's true. So yeah, completely outrageous. Like if you smell burning marijuana, you don't know, you can't presume that people were smoking it.
yeah.
Again, I think it's the Supreme Court smoking the dope. All right, what else we got for tonight? Not much else. There was the I don't know if I want to get into the story about this Carmela Anthony guy just murdered, this black guy just murdered a white guy in cold blood, but that's not really a Michigan story. Although I will say tangentially, I was upset Matt Walsh attacked Give Send Go for allowing the petition, the support for the murderer, which like I understand why he's upset about that one, but like the whole principle is that you don't take down people and deplatform them. Give Send Go became popular because of when GoFundMe took down Kyle Rittenhouse's petition. So I think Matt Walsh got that one wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We got the guy in Chelsea, the city council member, the one that said "Hail Hitler" in response to some members of the public, has apparently resigned because it's not appropriate to just say "Hail Hitler" in a city council meeting.
Yeah.
So that happened. Although there was, I don't have it handy, but there's another case going on. I think the Midwestern covered it, but there was this. They do have it here someplace. This is the story. Let me pull it up here. This is in the West Coast, Michigan part of the state. I don't know if it's Republican or not, but it's Van Buren County, so I think they're probably pretty conservative. But in Bangor, Michigan, they voted 7-0 to approve a motion to allow their city attorney to charge people with making statements that are disrespectful and harmful to the city of Bangor, criticizing and demanding to know how much money a certain individual is paid. And so the Foundation for Individual Rights and Express, that's interesting. This used to be called the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education and was strictly about campus free speech. I wonder if they're branching out now. It's cool if they are. They're a great organization, defending free speech on campuses and apparently now against governments in general, which completely bars government entities like the city of Bangor from suing for defamation. Another example of out of control government officials, whether it's here or that Rochester school board, lots of school boards, in fact, library boards, where they are attacking the rights of citizens to get access to basic information, to criticize their government and everything else. So let's hope in Bangor that this tiny town is able to replace their entire town council. Allegan says no one is complaining about across the board tariffs. Well, we'll see. We'll see what kind of effect economics has on this, because and we'll see what happens to the prices. Apparently, about 70% of all the goods on Amazon are from China, so they'll just disappear or something. We'll see how that all gets handled. Allegan News also says international diplomacy is the same as cutthroat business deals. Both have long-term agreements and both will cut and run when it fits needs. Well, maybe. I don't know. From someone who is an expert in international relations, not me, but from other people that have talked about this, they say they are actually quite different. But we'll see. I don't think Trump actually has, to my knowledge, any experienced diplomats. So I guess he'll have to settle for experienced business negotiators. So there's that. Anyway, I think that's about our show for tonight. But Patty, you've got an event coming up. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So in last December's lame duck session, the Democrats put forth a bill to take away the ability.
There's Boston. Sorry, this is the picture I meant to show. Yeah, there's Boston. He's a good boy. Here we go. This is the picture here.
Yeah. So in House Bill 6088, they took away the ability of Wayne County communities to opt out of the countywide busing.
This is one of those bills that was passed after the end of the year, too, if I
Correct.
recall.
It was December 10th, and then it went to the Senate. They passed it, and it got signed like January sometime. So anyway, so we are having an event to inform everyone that this is coming. This was voted on in our area in Western Wayne County. We have the misfortune of having all Democrat state reps and state senators. So they voted against what our communities had previously decided on this issue. So they basically, Matt Kolazar, Jason Morgan, Reggie Miller, who you know, Ranjiv Puri, Peter Herzberg, and Dana Polanki, Darren Camilleri, and Rosemary Bayer are all Democrats in this area and part of Downriver that voted to do this to everyone. So we are trying to inform everyone, see what we can do, if we can have anything to repeal it between now and 26 to, and then it wouldn't be on the ballot, but we'll see. So that is Monday, May 5th in Plymouth.
Cool.
It's free for members of Plymouth Canton Republicans Club, $10 if you're not a member, but I encourage everyone to join, especially if you live in these communities, because we're trying to do good things and inform the public. And it's also affects Northville and Livonia. So we're hosting this together.
Cool. Well, excellent. I got something you might want to bring up for them, by the way, which is the fact that
And Kolazar has decided to run for the empty seat now in State Senate 5, which is a result of the gerrymander, the racially gerrymandered.
Oh yeah.
Court-ordered redistricting that they had to do. So
yeah. So this is House Bill 6088, which, as we just mentioned, was presented to the governor on. It's funny how they look at how they change. They retroactively changed the date to December 31st over here, but then over here they say presented to the governor on January 8th at 11:54 a.m. after the term is over and the legislature has adjourned for the term, and then approved by the governor on January 17th. 2025 at 2:00 p.m. Now, I have first of all said, and I will maintain that until I see compelling evidence to the contrary, that Matt Hall dropped the ball on this by letting the bill be presented to the governor by anybody on January 8th. It may be completely illegal because whoever presented the bill to the governor may not have the authority to have done so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at least arguable that even if that person was permitted by the legislature to do so, it doesn't matter because the bill had already expired 2 weeks earlier. Now, the question is, who would litigate that issue? And courts tend to be very bad about standing and saying that, like, Patty, you, a member of the general public, can't just sue for on this because you don't have a particularized interest in this other than the taxes you pay. But if anybody in the world would have standing to sue, I would think it must be the city of Plymouth, because they are a branch of they're an entity of government that is directly impacted by this bill being taken to be a law. And of course, these municipalities also typically have their own attorneys. So you might want to check with our friend, the township supervisor, about what their attorney would say about this, because I think it should, I mean, they might come back and say, well, you're probably right, but the crooked Democrat left-wing Supreme Court would just rule against us anyway, and that would just set a bad precedent. I would still say bang on the court's door and do it anyway.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yep.
Yeah, I would make the push. If anybody could make a lawsuit about that, it would be them. John C. King says, with the re-gerrymandered senatorial districts, what do the Republican chances look like of taking the Senate in 2026? I honestly think gerrymandering is overrated, and that the strategy is not going to pass as much as people think they will. That it will.
Our new state Senate district, we're combined with Canton, so it's going to be a tough one. But now Northville is with Livonia and Farmington, so that one might be a little closer. Our district used to come from Plymouth, Northville, through Farmington, and like go all the way up to Kego Harbor. It was this weird, really weird shape. So now everything's at least more compact and stuff. Ours, I don't think we really have much of a chance. I don't know, but they may. Yeah.
I have to go back and look, but I expect it won't change the dynamic all that much. Anything else, guys? Amber, do you have any events coming up you want to plug? You almost always do.
I'm shifting to Bitcoin stuff right now, so that's a whole other topic for another day.
All right. Well, we've been going for 75 minutes.
I have a question for Amber. I heard on Charlie Leduff's show that they're having a debate or candidate forum, mayoral Detroit candidate forum, and that everyone's participating. Are you aligned with that statement?
I am no longer with that whole thing. So
Well, then okay.
yeah, that's another something for another day too. So I am fully on the Bitcoin train, establishing a great trade council in Lansing, and that's where I'm going to focus my efforts, because that's where I think that the policy and economic development probably is the best place for me right now.
By the way, I was not rolling my eyes. I was checking up the Rumble chats, and they just say we need to support good Republicans. This is Hitman 40. We need to get behind good Republicans. Yeah, exactly. The good ones, and only the good ones.
That's such a relative term.
Yeah. Well, we had a good event. I forgot to mention, I had a good event last week with my county Republican club with Matt Wilk, friend of the show, talking about suing our local school boards, which we might talk about that in an upcoming show too, because that was really good. We got to schedule something out to do next. But yeah, guys, sorry to be kind of a downer on all that's going on in Washington, but this is kind of embarrassing, honestly. I am not tired of winning. I am tired of not winning. So is what it is. So, all right, guys, until next week. Until next week. Keep at it. Thanks for all you guys do for Liberty. Go ahead, Patty.
Oh, next week's Easter.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do maybe a show late this week and then one early next week or something like that. We'll figure it out. All right, that'll do it for us tonight, guys. Until next time. Peace.
Bye.